Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of Through the Fire. I am your host, Ryan Wickline, and today we're joined by high performance coach, speaker, and podcast host, Rob Tracz. How you doing today, Rob?
I'm doing great, Ryan. I'm excited to be here. Thank you for taking the time, and thanks for having me on too. I'm excited.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you here too. Anytime I can talk mindset with people, I love it.
Yeah, me too. Me too. It's very fascinating, and I'm excited to kind of dive in and see where our conversation takes us.
Yeah, awesome. So the number one question that the audience probably wondering, who is Rob Tracz?
Yeah, I mean, like you said in the intro, there wear a couple different hats. Entrepreneur, started a supplement line, backgrounds in strength and conditioning, but I think at the core of it, I'm just a lifelong learner looking to kind of improve and create better impact in the world and connect with more people. My journey of personal development probably started before most people. I'd say it was probably down when I was in middle school, maybe elementary school. Parents were divorced at a super young age, and that made it difficult for me to kind of make and maintain friendships, shifting schools and bouncing around a lot. And that's really in the beginning stages was like, okay, well, how do I make friends? How do I take care of myself? How do I kind of build up and grow? And that was really the beginning of my personal development journey.
So how did you go about making friends and like connecting with people?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough as a kid. I mean, it's tough even as an adult. Like you got to try to go out and make new friends. Like it's damn near impossible. But as a kid, shifting school districts every year makes it really difficult. Especially because then you got to start over. You got to do the whole new kid kind of thing again. And it was challenging for me. And until we finally found a hometown that we were going to call home, it was really tough for me. And then in that small town of Highland, New York, which is like kind of upstate-ish, the one kid that I really connected well with, his dad was the football coach, and he was like, "Hey, Rob, I really think you should come out and try out for some sports." And at the time being, I was just this dweeby little overweight kid, and the only thing I really cared about was like cartoons, video games, and ice cream. So I had no place in sports or athletics at all, and showed up to football practice day one, and I learned two very important lessons. The first lesson is you can't wear jeans to football practice. And the second lesson I learned was that a lot of the more popular kids on the team, they seemed to just get it. They were faster, they were bigger, they were stronger than a lot of the other kids, and everybody knew them. They seemed to know what they were doing, and above all, they were really good at getting through practice, specifically the warm-up. And I struggled with the warm-up. I couldn't even complete the warm-up lap as we were getting ready to begin the warm-up. But what I did learn was I could memorize some of the routines, some of the exercises, and some of those things. And that I took home with me, and I started practicing those on my own at home. And eventually that led me to get a little bit leaner, a little bit stronger. Now I'm getting into fifth grade and starting to play a little bit more. And the more that I practiced those exercises, the better and stronger and more confident I felt. And the more confidence that I have, the more playing time I would get. And the more playing time led to more friends on the team. And more friends on the team led to more birthday parties. And if I wanted to go to more birthday parties, my mom said I had to make sure my grades were good. So then that became the next thing for me to practice. And it just kind of steamrolled up from there. But it really started from building that connection and taking care of my physical health, and then which then led into my mental health and allowed me to develop the grit through wrestling and other sports like lacrosse. That really allowed me to continue to play athletics at a higher and higher level, which then led to more friends and things and so on like that. So it really all started, I think, with that developing that routine of practicing my own physical health and taking care of myself in the strength and conditioning kind of realm.
Yeah. How important was like developing your mindset through that period? Like starting out as the fat, chubby kid who couldn't even make it through warm-ups. Like, what was your mindset like at that time as you started progressing?
It was tough. I think I had a lot of different things going on through my head because my mom remarried. I had an older stepbrother who, he's a couple of years older than me. So he kind of like rough and tough me up a little bit at home. So then part of me was like, oh, I got to get tougher, one, so I can handle myself and like not get beat up or embarrassed in front of my brother. And that also carried over into sports too. It was like, okay, I got to push harder because I'm seeing some form of success, whether that is popularity on the team or performance on the field or on the mat, whatever it may be. I made the association that the stronger I would get, that the more success I would start to have, whatever that really looked like. So then I took that as, okay, I got to push myself. I got to continue to train harder. I need to do things that others aren't willing to do so that I can get to those other stages that other people can't get to. And I think at a young age, I really developed this stubbornness and really ability to kind of keep pushing myself and taking on more challenges and really going further than others. And I wore that like a badge of honor. And that I think carried over into a lot of different aspects of my life. For like grad school, really pushing myself and graduating my master's with a 4.0 like GPA, starting my business and really grinding a lot of hours in the entrepreneurial world and then making transitions and pivots left and right and really having that grit that really came from those early ages of, I got to grind, I got to push, I got to do one more push-up, I got to run one more lap, I got to do one more sprint, whatever it may be. And I think it was just a accumulation of a lot of practice and a lot of reps over the years.
I love it. I love what sports can teach you.
Oh yeah.
So you mentioned you're a former wrestler.
Yeah.
What did that sport teach you?
Oh, that taught me a lot of things. And talking about mental toughness too, like you should have my high school coach on here because he had me coming back and, wrestling is tough because practices are long, tournaments are even longer. And here in the Northeast, you don't get very much sunlight. So it's like you wake up, you get in the gym for your morning lift and you're training, you go to school. And then right after training, you're running laps and then trying to lose weight. You're back in the wrestling room. Afterwards, you're running more to continue to lose weight. And it's that right there is like the essence of grit and resilience. And I think if I didn't wrestle, I don't think I'd be the same person I am today. I don't think I'd be the same coach or mentor or even speaker as that, because you learn so many values. And I think the number one there is that grit and resilience, though.
I completely agree with you on that. I mean, that sport taught me so much about myself that's not even funny.
Yeah, it's like a gut check every single day too, because if you catch yourself dogging, that's one thing. But if somebody else catches you dogging, then it's going to show and it's going to know. And like, yeah, everybody knows.
Yeah, I completely agree. You played football in college. What type of mindset and habits did it take you to get there and succeed?
Yeah, so I think so it's kind of funny. So I applied to I think 7 different colleges up here in the Northeast, Division III schools, and the only school that I applied to that didn't recruit me for football is the one that I wanted to go to. And I think it's that little bit of stubbornness that I kind of talked about earlier, because I was like, damn, all these other schools want me to come and play, and this is the only one that said no. So I was like, I'm going to go and I'm going to walk on and I'm going to make the team. And that's exactly what I did. I showed up and went all out for my sprint times and everything. I tore my hamstring actually running the 40-yard dash at walk-on tryouts. And I didn't want anybody to think that I was weak or that I couldn't compete and couldn't play. So I didn't tell anybody about that. My hamstring was black and blue and purple through the entire season. And I would just show up hobbling to practice and eventually getting through the warm-ups. It would kind of get myself ready to roll, make it through practice, make it through everything else. And then I just kind of kept going, showing up. And I scored a touchdown in a game against Brockport, which was like the highlight of my career. Cause I was like, you know what? I did it. I came, I proved, I scored. This is it. I'm in pain. I'm hanging up the cleats. And then I transitioned over to rugby, which probably wasn't the easiest or the most smart transition, but made that and then continued to play 3 more years. I think we were at the Division II level. We won a state championship and we went on to nationals and then ended up losing by 1 point in the first round of the national championship, or national playoffs, I should say.
Awesome. So what led you to start a coaching business?
Yeah. So as I was kind of mentioning earlier, like my whole journey of personal development began through athletics, through training, through essentially strength training. It was me doing those warm ups. And as I said, the stronger that I would continue to get, the more playing time I would get. And then eventually it was like, okay, I got to pay attention to different kinds of nutrition to fuel myself so I can get an advantage. And then it became like having better goals and optimizing my rules and routines, making sure my habits were squared up, and then also making sure that my teammates were all really great too. And then that really allowed us to create opportunity and prepare ourselves so we be in the best position to succeed. And that's a lot of the principles that I kind of live by and teach nowadays. But when I was in college and I was in undergrad, I didn't really know what it is that I wanted to do. I knew it was something athletic and something movement and being physical. So I originally wanted to be a phys ed teacher. And I realized that I didn't really want to be around kids all day. So it was tough working in the school districts with like the young kids. So I was like, you know what? I need to still have something athletic. I need to be something where we're team camaraderie, where we can work together towards a common goal. So I changed my major and I got into kinesiology, which is, for the listeners who might not have heard of it, it's the study of human movement. And that really allowed me to get into strength and conditioning. And that's where my journey of coaching really began. Like I always had that leadership type of role, and I was like players coach, kind of like coaching the other teammates and stuff like that. But now as a strength and conditioning coach, I really could step in and help other players really step up their game and get to the next level, all working together towards championships and still making sure that we have something focused that we can work on. And in strength and conditioning, typically you go two routes. You either try to go collegiate and work your way up to the pros, or you kind of dive into the private sector, as you may know. And in the private sector, you kind of get that little entrepreneurial spirit. You get to make your own schedule. You get to book your clients. It's all on, you get to market yourself. You can do this and you do that. And that was cool for me because nobody could tell me that I couldn't work. So then I'm like, all right, well, this is a perfect example for me to really put my grit and resilience to the test and really just grind. And because nobody told me not to work more hours, in fact, it was encouraged for me to work more hours. I scaled my book of business up to the point where I was working 16, 17 training sessions a day, 7 days a week. And I did that for about 3 years. And again, I wore that like a badge of honor. And I was super efficient, right? Like I was making a lot of money. I was getting a lot of great results for my clients, but there's a trade-off. And that trade-off was my health, my physical, my mental health. And it was also a lot of the relationships that I had. My family, I hadn't seen in 3 years. Holidays, I continued to work and missed weddings and birthday parties of my friends. So my friends stopped calling me to hang out. And in that time period, my dad got diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer. And ultimately, he ended up passing away. And luckily I was there to be by his side for when he did pass. But in those few moments when he had left, those short weeks, I chose to work and use that busy schedule. And even after he had passed, I decided to go right back into that work mode because now my schedule became a distraction for me and a distraction from what life really became, what I created. And I continued to keep diving in and grinding on that for another year or so until I realized like, hey, this isn't the life that I want to be building. I want to be living something else. And I knew there was more to me than just strength and conditioning, but I didn't know what it was. And that's kind of where I made that shift into, okay, I know there is some mental stuff I want to teach. There is some other things. And that's when I began to realize those principles that I was kind of mentioning before. That's really what's made me ultimately successful in life, not just my grit, not just my resilience. And that's how I got into the prime performance coaching that I do now. So long-winded answer to your question. So I apologize, but
Oh, you're good.
that's how I kind of wrapped around and got into coaching. So I've been in coaching for a while, and it's shortly for the past year or so is the prime performance is what I'm doing now.
It's amazing though when you look at it. Like one thing I've noticed with a lot of other coaches is that usually before you're led to that other sector, you have to go through some adversity and a lot of pain to kind of find like do some soul searching to lead you that way.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, like because my parents were divorced at a young age, and I think I was always kind of like pushing, working harder. I think I was also kind of like fighting for like the attention of my parents. And then I thought like in the entrepreneurial, when I first started my business, I thought it was making my dad proud by like working lots of hours. Like, oh, look at how great my son is. He's super busy. But at the end of the day, I was sacrificing that time with my dad just to make a couple extra bucks. And, when he ended up passing away, it was tough for me to kind of face that. Cause I was like, dang, that's not who I am. I know who I am. I'm a leader. I'm a role model. I work hard, but I was working for the wrong thing. I was misaligned and I was all out of whack. And that was a tough pill to swallow for me to realize that things needed to change.
Yeah. So what type of services do you provide?
So I do like I was saying earlier, a lot of different things. I do a lot of one-on-one coaching. I do group coaching. I run a mastermind about building momentum and self-leadership. I teach a lot of workshops on public speaking, conflict resolution, navigating power dynamics. Work with a couple different organizations where I'm brought in as a contractor to help teach different things. And speaking on stage too, traveling around different conferences and sharing a lot of my experiences and insights on those. And then obviously my podcast as well, Surviving the Side Hustle, where I interview other entrepreneurs and coaches and small business owners, all different stages of their entrepreneurial journey.
Awesome. So what are the 3 pillars you integrate into your coaching framework?
Yeah, it's all about looking good, feeling good, and doing great things. So those are like the 3 phases. And then each phase has 2 mini pillars. In order to look good for me, you really got to have that resilience and that confidence. And you've got to have the energy and motivation to kind of tackle anything that you've got on your plate. So the first principle of being resilience that we kind of shined on a whole bunch there. But the second one is intentionality, like being intentional specifically with what we're consuming. Because there's a lot more that we consume than just the diet. There's also the digital diet too. So are you listening to great podcasts like this that are going to motivate and inspire you to show up as your best version? Or are you wasting time binging Netflix every day after work and just kind of turning your brain off to turn the brain off? Because when you have it dialed in and you're more intentional and you're confident and you can tackle anything, to me, that's considered looking good. And then you graduate into that feeling good phase. And in order to feel good, you've got to be able to move smoothly and efficiently. And you can't do that if you don't know where you're going. So it's a lot of goal setting and understanding your values and setting expectations for yourself, and then optimizing your rules and routines, like I said a little earlier, making sure that your habits and your schedules reflect what it is you're trying to achieve. Because when you know where you're at and where you're trying to get to, and you have a nice smooth way of getting there, to me, that's considered feeling good. And then that graduates you into that looking good or doing great things, I should say. And you can't do great things. You can do good things on your own, but in order to do great things, you've got to have a good team around you. So identifying your mentors, your captains, and then the crowd that cheers you on, and really having a strong social support team. And then really from there, it's just making sure that you're prepared and setting yourself up to create opportunity. And really becoming that overnight success that everyone always talks about. But we all know that there's no such thing as that overnight success.
Yeah, I wish that could happen more often, the overnight success. I love how you talked about what we consume. That was one of the first things when I was going through like my process too of changing my mindset was I had to watch what I consume because I was taking in a lot of things that weren't good for me.
Yeah. Yeah. So like, just like in sports and like wrestling, you got to pay attention to what you're eating so that you can optimize how your body moves. And I take it a step further, right? I take it into considering like the digital content that we're consuming. So it's your dietary nutrition, but then also your digital nutrition too. Because if you're binging Netflix and if you're listening to music that's really negative, or if you've got a lot of people around you that are all sharing negative things and you've got a tough critic inside your head, a lot of negative talk, it's going to make it difficult for you to find motivation and the energy to kind of push forward. I don't mean you got to listen to like that woo woo, like, oh, like you're the greatest in the world, everything every morning on repeat. But you do want to find things like your podcast and my podcast that share motivational things and have great guests that inspire and educate. And You want to make sure you're listening to good books or reading good books and listening to TED Talks, things that will energize and motivate you so that you can kind of trick that mindset into it. You've heard of your reticular activating system,
No.
RAS? It's the part of the brain where when you buy a new car and then all of a sudden you start seeing that same car everywhere.
Yeah. Okay. Now I know what you're talking about.
Do you know who Mel Robbins is?
Yeah.
So she's a powerful speaker and she talks about it pretty frequently too. And she was around a lot of negativity in her life. And so she wanted to introduce more love into her life. So she started to train herself to identify and find heart-shaped objects every day. And when she would see the heart-shaped object, she would remind herself and make a note about it. And that would allow her to kind of trick her brain into feeling more love and seeing more love. And I'm a huge fan of that because I love meditating because it allows me to pause and stop my brain from whatever I've got going on. I love journaling and thinking and really putting myself into a positive state and really identifying more positive plus ones around me and making sure that I'm as happy as it can be, but like also appreciating some of the negative emotions too, as I imagine you kind of share it too. I think all emotions are good and it's healthy to have a balance of all of them, and really putting yourself in with visualization, like Kobe and Michael Jordan were great at visualizations. And that's a lot of mindset stuff. If you can't have that positive idea, or if you can't put yourself into that situation and see it through, like that's going to be a tough thing, right? How do you handle a lot of people with negative self-talk and such with your coaching?
A lot of is getting them to, I always start everybody out on confidence. So first thing I do is get them to start writing down times they've been successful.
Yeah.
And like at least we do probably about 12 things. And then I'll do like 12 skills that you have, like certain skills you have that are going to help you get there. And then I'll just take it slow with them and get them to start repeating that stuff and like pair it up with a movement, a gesture. And I start them out slow doing that. And then I just work them through to the affirmations and visualization.
Yeah.
I mean, but they don't understand the reason I start there is because I got to start getting rid of those negative thoughts that they have because there's so many of them.
Yeah. See, that's why I'm a huge fan of like gratitude journaling, because to me, that's just me like playing the highlight reel for myself. Like, oh man, look how awesome I am. I am great. Look at this.
Yeah. I just recently started back up again, but every night I have to start writing stuff down because there's some days, that's the grind we're under right now, like doing podcasting and trying to build coaching businesses. Like, and I'm working full time too, because I just started everything. So like, I have to sit down and write out my emotions at times because some days are bad.
Yeah. I love that.
Look for positive,
I love that too. And I'm a big fan of actually like writing it out. Like I type it out on the computer or type it out on my phone, but that allows me to kind of slow down that process. Cause when I'm thinking about it, my brain goes so much faster than what I'd like it to. So then me typing it out allows me to process it at a slower pace and then really kind of feel it. And then looking at it like, okay, well, how have things been going? Have I been stressing, or have I been talking a lot about this in my journal? Have I been thinking a lot about this? And then like you were saying, like, how do I shift that? How do I get into it? How do I start to visualize something else? And I love that. Like, I like to visualize out my future, different things with my business, where I'm at. And it's powerful stuff. Well, I don't remember the study exactly, but did you hear about that one study where they had like split into 3 groups? There was one group that would shoot basketballs, one group would visualize shooting basketballs, and one group wouldn't do any basketballs. And then they retested, and the group that visualized shooting the basketballs scored essentially the same as the group that went out and actually practiced shooting free throws.
Wow. I never heard of that study, but I heard of another study. I can't remember what exactly the percentage wise was, but it's like the people who visualized were like 75% more likely to like achieve their goals or something like that. It was just like, wow. I was like, and I always tell everybody, it was like, first you have to be able to see it. And by visualizing it, you give your brain permission to go after it.
Yeah, that's tough though, right? So like, how do you work with your athletes and your clients on like introducing visualization? Because that's something that I need to continue to get better at myself, actually.
So we just sit there and I ask them kind of, what's your goals? Like, what do you want? And like, what's your main goal? Okay. So I said, okay, so we're going to start off slow because normally I tell them like we want to get to about 10 minutes a day at least,
Yeah.
every night or every morning, do it a couple times even would be even better. Do it, but start out slow. If you got to start out like 2 minutes, picture yourself there, picture yourself competing against the people because when you're competing, who's better than you or who's likely you're going to have to face
Mhm.
at the moment. So picture yourself there. And I want you to picture the crowd, smell the food, smell everything around you, listen for the sounds of the crowd, everything and all that. I mean, and just like use all of our senses. And I tell them like, if we have to start out small, let's start out small to get you going and then we'll pick it up.
Yeah, that's powerful stuff. I can tell a lot of your clients probably benefit a lot from that, because that whole getting your senses into it is really a game changer, because as soon as you can feel it, you can smell it, it becomes so much more real.
Yeah.
And your brain really can't tell the difference between like visualization and actually happening. So
Yeah,
that's
like,
powerful
and I
stuff.
tell them that's how you start manifesting everything. Is it's like start visualizing what you want and feel it inside of you. Like the more you feel it, the more likely you are to achieve it.
Yeah, dude, that's so true. Oh yeah.
So another thing I found out too, like a lot of them will get nervous right before, the nerves and everything. So
Yeah.
one thing I start talking to them about, okay, so when you start feeling the nerves and the negative thoughts start coming to you right before you get out there and start competing, go 10 things you're grateful for, do your 5 affirmations, and then go straight into visualization. And it usually calms their mind down right away.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. And I mean, I had this one coach that he was like an assistant coach that came in, and he would try to get me to like, he'd try to amp me up, and he would try to get me like hyped up and get angry and all this other stuff. And I was like, dude, that doesn't work for me, man. I was like, you know what? I need to just chill out. I need to keep my cool. Like, I wish I had somebody kind of like you when I was there, because that would have been way more beneficial for me. And that's really what I've like identified myself through all the different strength and conditioning philosophies and all the different training programs and coaching things that I've been through. I've realized that everybody is so individualized. You can't just take one thing and apply it to everybody. You've got to take a little bit of this and a little bit of that and really figure out what works well for you as an individual. And that's where I take my principles and I try to apply them in a way that fits best for the individual. So it's not like, oh, you got to build resilience or you got to improve your efficiency on this thing. It's like, okay, well, what does work for you? What do you think would work well for you? And then we kind of work from there. We kind of build a plan together and essentially creating the best customized plan for yourself. Because at the end of the day, I think that's really the key, right? Is understanding what works best for you.
Yeah. Like I said before, like a lot of coaching don't understand, there's a lot of trial and error because you got to realize what's going through your client's head and everything. And like, what's their mind? What limiting beliefs do they have that you got to kind of overcome? Or like, this might work for somebody, but not so well for this other person. So, like, kind of learning and adapting on the fly.
Yeah. And that's tough, right? And that's why that's really what separates the good coaches from the great coaches, I should say, is being able to communicate and use different tools and strategies that kind of work to different audiences or different clients or different athletes, and being able to be malleable, really, right? Be flexible and be able to adapt whenever needed.
Yeah. Can you explain the connection between physical resilience and entrepreneurial success, and how do you coach clients to build both?
Yeah, I mean, like we were saying earlier, like having, to me, resilience is the capacity to handle things, right? So being able to withstand the ups and the downs. We know as athletes, there's going to be good days, there's going to be bad days, there's going to be good games, there's going to be really bad games. The important thing is you got to show up and you got to get right back on it the next day. I'm a Cincinnati Bengal fan, and it's been tough over the years, but Joe Burrow is as cool as they get. Starting off the season last year, he said like, yeah, he's gets through a tough game. Maybe they lost, and he can't be thinking about it. He can't sulk on it. He's got to just start focusing on the next one. In entrepreneurship, it's the same thing. Like, you're going to have great days where you're going to have new clients coming in. You're going to have new business rolling in, new products being sold. And you got to be cool enough to handle it when there is success and things are going through, because you don't want to just jump out and being like, oh, let me go start spending all this money I'm making. But the same thing too on the downside, right? If you lose a client, or if somebody is taking a break or a breather, or maybe sales are down, or maybe something else is going wrong, you got to have that wherewithal to kind of see through the storm and know that, okay, I still got to show up. I got to be able to do that. And if you lack that resilience, life's going to be emotional, and you're not going to make it far in entrepreneurship. So you build that, I believe, by challenging yourself. Right. We're taking on different challenges every day, whether it's starting a podcast, or maybe it's how many sales calls you got to make, or how many times you got to follow up to potential leads, or I got to go to networking events, or for me, like, it was speaking on stages and things like that. I got to get comfortable doing those things. And I think rising to those challenges, whether it is in the gym, or if it's cold plunges or speaking on stages, it's introducing that discomfort to you. And the more comfortable you get being uncomfortable, the wider your comfort zone is, and the stronger your resilience is, and the more you can handle and take on different things. And if you're starting out, the easiest thing is just getting in the gym. Go for a walk, try something. It sucks sprinting or sled sprints, but try something that's within the wheelhouse, and then just push a little bit. I like to call it rise to the challenge. And I use the framework RISE, RISE, and it stands for review, because you want to make sure that you're taking on new challenges, but you also got to review and determine how many challenges have I been taking on. And then you want to identify whether it's time to bring on new challenges, or if it's time to slow down and take a little bit of a breather. Because as much grit and resilience as you want to have, there are breaking points. Everybody breaks at some point. So if you don't review and identify which direction you want to make, on whether it's bringing on more challenges or taking a break from challenges, you can break. Then S is strategize. What is the game plan? If you are taking time off, how long? What does that look like? What is your recovery time? And if it's time to amp things back up, what does that look like? For example, for myself, I've been doing a lot more on social media. So originally I got up to posting 3 times a week. And for this past month or so, I've really stepped in. I said, okay, it's time for me to challenge myself on this social media game. And last week, I think I posted 7 reels and 10 posts. And my views on social media, I've gotten over 80,000 views in the last 30 days or something like that, which is a huge increase for me. So the challenge is paying off. And the last letter there is evaluate. Is it actually working to what you wanted to do? Is the challenge paying off? Are you benefiting? Are you growing? Are you getting better at it? And then it's time to look at it again. Go back to R, time to review. Is it time to take a break, or should we double down on the challenge, and so on and so on?
I love that advice. Get used to making yourself uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And so that's one thing that I've had to learn there for a while too, is like, hey, if you're getting comfortable, you're probably not growing.
Yeah.
So you can go to the gym and put yourself in them uncomfortable positions.
Yeah. So funny thing, probably 2 months ago, I was reviewing and identifying. I was like, oh, you know what? Things have been pretty relaxing for me. I don't have anything going on. I've been doing pretty well. So I identified the next letter. I was like, all right, you know what? I need to introduce some more discomfort into my life. And I couldn't really think of anything. So my S strategy was, I usually do a cold blast at the end of my showers, and that's usually kind of uncomfortable. But what's really uncomfortable is getting into it cold. So I would just turn it on cold and get into it at 5 o'clock in the morning, really wake myself up. And then evaluate. I did it for a month, and I was like, you know what? This sucks. I think it's time for me to take a break from that.
So you kind of touched on what the next topic here, burnout. How do you know that someone's getting close to burnout, and what would you do to turn things around?
Yeah. So burnout's pretty tricky, because I think it kind of shows itself in a multitude of different ways. It could be It could be physical and emotional instability, right? You could be like cranky, not feeling well, not being able to get through days. It could be low energy, low motivation. It could come through of feeling lost or cloudy and little like down in the dumps, like kind of like almost everything you're doing is not really doing anything. It could show up in like chaos, like you could be super stressed, like your whole day could be out of whack, and you could feel like you're constantly behind the ball instead of getting in front of it. Or it could also even be like isolation, or like there are no opportunities, like you're kind of out on an island by yourself. So usually if I'm working with an individual, and we're typically working to build momentum with whatever projects they're working on, their business or something else. And if we start to see some of those symptoms that I was just kind of sharing, then we kind of take a step back and we kind of reevaluate and we figure out where we're at, because the burnout is tough and it comes through, like I said, in all those different ways. And it comes through in different ways for different people too, because sometimes we can push a little bit more and sometimes we can't. But it's really about being aware. Like, what season are we in? Like, do we need to push a little bit more? Do we need to grind just a little bit more? And then where is that end zone? Where do we stop at the end? And I think it's really the key here is awareness.
So what advice would you give if somebody's getting close to that fatigue where they can't push anymore?
Yeah, I mean, it's I would have to ask, like, well, where are you? What season are you in? Because if you're trying this new campaign where you're really, like, for example, for me with the social media, I'm like, all right, maybe I'm getting a little burned out. Like, okay, this is a lot of that I'm producing. It's like a lot of stuff that's going out there. It's really wearing on me. I set the deadline. I said I was going to do it for 6 weeks. If I'm week 2, then maybe it's time for me to switch this and try a different challenge. But if I'm here finishing up on week 5 and I got one more left, then I would say, all right, I got to just tough it up. I got to just get through this next week, just grind it out, stop making excuses and figure out what is at and how to get through it. So it depends on the individual. It's because I've worked with people who've been in 9 to 5 that they've absolutely hated for 10 years. And they're trying to write a book and they can't get anything done because they're thrown off at work and then their routines are all screwed up, super burnt out, unable to get anything done. And for them, I'm like, dude, you're definitely there. We need to revamp this whole process. We need to get you a new job. And to be honest, that's what we did. We took a couple steps back from a lot of the other goals that he was working on, and we focused on finding a new place. Super amped when he got one, and it shifted everything around. Right from there, like his goal is, he never really wanted to lose that much weight or anything. He just wanted to get stronger, get in the gym. But because that one job was burning him out, and we shifted it around, new job, he's amped it up. He's just got a copy of his novel done, and he's down 25 pounds, and he's moving and grooving, feeling better than ever. And like, see, his situation was he needed to get out of his toxic work environment. For me with social media is you got to grind a little bit further. So if someone's feeling that burnout, I think the best thing to do is shine some light on it and say, where are you? What season are you in? How much more do you need to, if you need to? And how can you change if you need to?
Great advice. What would you recommend for somebody who doesn't lacks clarity and maybe focus and purpose?
Yeah, I think diving into it's a great exercise I use. It's called flying your flag, your pirate's flag. I'm a big fan of the Pirates of the Caribbean, so I always do the pirate's flag. But I'm a big acronym guy, like I told you before, with the rise to the challenge. Flag itself, FLAG. If you're lacking clarity and purpose and like motivation too, figuring out what your flag is. And F is your foundation. So your foundational values. Everybody always talks about business values and core values, this and that. And that was a concept that I always heard through sports and business and things like that. But I never really understood mine. So I spent some time. It's not the easiest to kind of figure out what your core values are, but once you do, that really allows everything else to fall into alignment. It allows you to make better decisions for yourself and your business. So I think really establishing that at the very least, figuring out your foundational values. And then once you do, then you can move to L, which is your lifestyle. And you figure out, what is the life that you want to be living? Do you want to be coaching 17 hours a day, back-to-back training sessions? Or do you want to create more impact and be able to travel the world and connect and speak to a lot of people? That's something I had to figure out, because I do love training. I do love being in the gym, and I'll probably never give that up. I'll always have that gym aspect to me, but I realized that that's not the life that I wanted to be living. I wanted to be traveling and creating more impact and have a little more freedom. So I needed to change my life and figure out what it takes to get to that lifestyle that I want to be living. And then once you know your values and you know the life you want to be living, you ask yourself, what are your aspirations? So A in flag is, what are the goals that you're looking to achieve? What are your 10-year goals, your 5-year goals, your 3-year goals, your 1-year goals, your next quarter goals? Because you got to have an understanding of these things. You got to know where you want to get to. And the more detail that you can put into those, the easier it's going to be, because you know your values, you know the life you're trying to build, and you know the milestones you're trying to hit. And then things become a lot more clear, and it starts to make it a lot easier for you to make the decisions. And then the final letter, G, is growth. So where are you actually getting better at the things that you're doing? Are you a coach? Are you taking more coaching certifications? Are you going to more conferences? Are you learning from others? Do you have a coach yourself? And where are you maybe not the strongest? Like for me, it was technology. For my podcast, it was tough for me to produce a lot of the episodes, and it was tough for me to do the editing and the creating the social media. So I had to hire a team of virtual assistants that would help me out. So then I could do the things that I was better at, was having conversations and interviewing people, and they could do a lot of the tech work and scheduling and planning that stuff out for me, so that I didn't need to necessarily spend a lot of time on that. And then putting that all together, that paints the picture of your flag. You've got your values, you got your lifestyle, you know where you want to go, you know what you're good at and what you're not the greatest at, so you can delegate out. And then that should clear up a huge amount of the fog that you might be experiencing.
Awesome. So you host the podcast Surviving the Side Hustle. What type of content do you produce?
Yeah, so that is much like your show here, where it's a one-on-one interview, or typically one-on-one. I've had a couple interviews where I had multiple guests, but I really highlight the guest every episode. We dive into their story, their struggles, and their secrets to high performance, kind of sharing where they're at in their entrepreneurial journey. I've interviewed individuals who are scaling their business to over 10 million with like 300 locations and almost 500 employees, to people who are just starting their side hustle. Like they just turned their hobby into a side hustle, and now they're starting to make a little bit of money, and they're trying to figure out how to market and how to sell their product and how to get in front of their target audience. So it's really interesting, because you get to hear everyone's stories. You get to hear the struggles and the challenges that they've gone through and currently are going through. And then you get to hear what they do to help them perform at their best. And it's really a great opportunity to connect with cool people and relate to and learn something as well.
I think that's my favorite part too, is like listen to their stories, because everybody thinks they were just handed something. It's like, most of them went through a lot of pain and suffering and had to overcome a lot.
Yeah, we talked about the overnight success earlier.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Don't see that too many times though. So what's your biggest challenge?
What's my biggest challenge
in podcasting?
I think it's making sure that I have enough time for it. I'm constantly doing interviews. I think this is my second one this week, and I think I have another 6 planned where I'm interviewed. And then I also have a bunch where I'm interviewing. At the same time, I want to make sure that I still have enough calendar space for my clients. I go to a lot of different events. So it's like really making sure that I allocate enough for everybody everywhere. But that's like a good problem to have, I feel like. So it's not too bad. A lot of different tools out there in the world that make it easy to get connected with the great individuals like yourself, and makes it a whole lot easier with the better technology.
I couldn't agree more. You're a motivational speaker. What's inspired you to start speaking on stages?
Yeah, I think I kind of hinted to it earlier that I've always been in a leadership position for a lot of the different teams that I've been on. Football, I think I was a three-year varsity captain. Wrestling, I was a 4-year varsity captain. Lacrosse, I was 2. In rugby in college, I was a 2-year captain. And then, just a lot of different like rec leagues and things like that. And being in that leadership type role, Either it's in the weight room or it's like in front of the team in the huddle, kind of amping people up, or even then afterwards, like as a strength and conditioning coach in front of the teams and making sure that everyone's kind of aligned and doing what they're supposed to be doing so that they don't get hurt. I think it's always been easy for me to kind of get in front of a crowd. And then when I made that shift into performance coaching and wanting to get in front of other entrepreneurs and solopreneurs, I realized that I needed to find a way to kind of stand out a bit. And speaking on stage, like public speaking in general, is the number one greatest fear that Americans have. That's higher than dying and spiders. So people would rather die from spiders than speak in front of a crowd, which is just insane. So I knew if I could do this, I can get in front of more people. I can share my experiences, my insights, and a lot of different frameworks and principles that I live by. And if I can just impact and inspire at least one individual with my different stories, then that's a big win for me. You know, like we didn't even get into a lot of the different stories, but like I'm a meatball eating champion. I tried to run 100 miles in 24 hours. There's like a lot of different things out there, but that relate to a lot of principles that I talk about.
How did you do in trying to run 100 miles in 24 hours?
Yeah. So my longest run in training for that was 5 miles the week before. And I did not do well. So I pushed. But when the dust settled and the timer expired, I had successfully completed 53 miles. So I had just passed the double marathon and fell terribly short of my goal, but I learned a lot of lessons, and it was a definitely a tough challenge. And I thought I had like rhabdomyolysis in my legs. My legs and feet, ankles, and hips were so swollen. Like my shins were squishy. Like I could push on my shin bone and it would like squish in. So I was like, this is not good.
Man, that's still pretty good. 53 miles.
Yeah.
And only trained in 5.
Yeah, I was not conditioned for it. So that's could have done better.
What are your short-term and long-term goals?
Yeah. So long-term goals is really kind of getting to the point where I have more of a team for my coaching business. I want to hire other coaches underneath me, and I want to be doing more retreats and conferences and traveling around a lot more. And I think short-term goals is really interesting because this year my goal is to have 150 hours of direct one-on-one conversation with people. So this year it's been all about developing better connections with individuals. And I think being able to communicate and connect with people is the best way to build your business. So spending time on podcasts and genuinely having good conversations and being able to connect people with others that might need more help or they might need to be introduced to. I think that's the key because I don't really see competition anymore. I see more collaboration. I think that's the new form of currency. And like, I'll tell you, like, quick story. Like when I was still personal training, strength and conditioning coaching, I moved into the building here, and I posted out on the community wall. I said, "Are there any personal trainers in the building?" And a couple of people messaged me, and I went to meet with them, and they found out that I was a strength and conditioning coach, and they were like, "Oh, what are you doing? What are you just trying to like scam me or something?" And they were like, they brushed me off and they like never contacted me again. But this one woman, she heard me out and she was like, "Oh, that's interesting. So you're in the strength and conditioning. Why do you need a personal trainer?" I said, "Well, I don't necessarily need a personal trainer, but I am looking for somebody to collaborate with. I want to host a workshop for the building. And maybe I talk about nutrition and you talk about mobility, something where we can get all the residents together and we can showcase our expertise, and then maybe we can make some clients out of it." And she said it was a great idea. And I think that right there is awesome. We ultimately were unable to do that because the building didn't want us to, but we made a good friendship and I was able to refer her clients. She referred me clients and we had a great bond. And we would have never been able to have that like the other people if we didn't have that ability to connect, if she wasn't open to collaborating or open to connecting with me. So I think I've been working really hard on that this year to get that 150 hours of connecting with people. And I think that's only going to help me with my business and with my impact. And I think it's going to help a lot of my clients as well in the future.
I love that idea. Like I'm kind of the same way where I love just talking with people about mindset and like what's your secrets. How do you go about it? Because I might do something a little bit different, and just like, oh, you open my eyes to something. Maybe I opened your eyes to something, and just kind of share ideas.
It's just like coaching, right? So like
Yeah.
one coach might have a type of training philosophy or a type of philosophy for something. And you learn those perspectives and those philosophies and those strategies from different people. So like I took all the different strength and conditioning certifications and schools of thought, and some people didn't like training with barbells and some people like training with kettlebells, and those were all great, but learning from everybody allows you to develop your own kind of approach. And then that's carrying that over allows you to be more versatile of a tool for your clients, right? Like you have all these different strategies to teach to the individuals, and you can kind of figure out what works best for them, and then you become the expert, and it really just helps everybody.
Yeah. What is one book you'd recommend for personal development or mindset?
Yeah, so one book that I just finished reading is by John Maxwell, and it is Everybody Communicates but Few Connect. So that's a really great one I would recommend. And have you ever heard of Brett Bartholomew?
No.
I would recommend checking him out. He's got a book called Art of Coaching, and that's really great for connecting, creating buy-in, and developing culture amongst teams and then other clients and everything as well. I think that book is great because that was like the gateway for me in understanding communication and understanding how to connect with more people. And he's a good friend of mine, and he's a mentor of mine. And I know he's got a new book coming out next year, which would be really great. And I can't reveal anything on it yet because I don't know it all, but I know it's coming. I know what a lot of the material is, and it's going to be a game changer.
So I'll have to check that out. I've read the John Maxwell book. So really good. He's got quite a few good books.
Yeah, he's got a ton out there. So you can't go wrong with Maxwell.
No, I said he's anything leadership or anything along those lines. He's really good at kind of hammering the point home to you.
Yeah.
How can people get a hold of you?
Yeah, as I was kind of hinting to earlier, the easiest place is social media. I typically hang out on LinkedIn and Instagram the most. You can find me just by searching my name, Rob Tracz. Last name is a little weird, Tracz, as in Charlie Zebra. But yeah, I'm always there hanging out. You can always stay up to date on the different types of content that I'm putting out, the different projects I've got working on. You can stay up to date on the podcast. And yeah, always open for questions and definitely feedback too. So if you're listening to this and if anything resonated or you hated anything I said, I'd love to hear about it and hopefully create more impact in the future. And yeah, let me know about the episode and what you thought in general. Awesome.
Is there anything we haven't covered that you want to talk about?
You know, I think we hit on a lot of things, and I really, I think it was great. Like, covered a little bit about my background. I covered some of my coaching. I think you did a really great job in connecting. And I feel like this was an awesome episode, and hopefully a lot of people are getting a lot of value from the things that I was sharing. So I think we hit the nail on the head.
Awesome. Final question. What is one piece of advice you'd like to leave our listeners with about overcoming adversity?
I would say slow down, and I'm just going to go back to it. Pay attention to what works well for you, because I don't remember where I first heard it, but there was a quote saying that you have successfully overcame 100% of the challenges that you've had in your life. So there's a way, it's possible for you to succeed no matter what you're going through. You already are 100% successful in making it through to the next day. So just slow down, pay attention to what's worked well for you, and just double up on that.
Great advice. Rob, I can't thank you enough for coming on here. Great conversation.
Brian, I appreciate it, man. This was really fun. And this was great, man. I loved it. Thank you.
Yep. Well, guys, that's going to be all the time we have here today. Remember, the only way to get what you want is go through the fire.